All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Exercises Medicine Wellness webinar. My name is Kelly Erse. I'm the Wellness Program Manager for our program, and I have the pleasure this evening of introducing Jara Oliver, who is the co-founder and co-leader of the Growing and Growth Collective, the founder of Mahogany Manifesto, and the Senior Director of Development for the Ohio State University's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Jara is going to be sharing a wealth of information about gardening with us this evening, just in time for, or here in April, just in time for spring planting season. How does gardening help you with your health and wellness? So, Jara, I will turn it over to you. If there are any questions from the group, if you want to put those in the chat, I can monitor the chat, and we will take those questions as they come in or at the end for Jara. So thank you again, Jara, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you. You're on mute.
Okay. Hello. Thank you all. I'm very excited about this opportunity to present on this topic, gardening for comprehensive health and wellness. This has been something that I came into over time as a result of, adulting for a little while, and then stumbling upon the reality that, I'm not fully well, and I need to unpack some stuff. And I came into gardening as the tool that I was able to use to help me unpack and get well comprehensively. And I hope that you identify with some aspect of my journey and are able to either double down on your participation in gardening as a tool for comprehensive health and wellness, or to enter into gardening as a tool for comprehensive health and wellness. So I'll start off by sharing just a little bit about myself, give you a little perspective as to how I came to gardening for health and wellness. I will leverage the 9 dimensions of wellness to kind of give an overall picture of how it has shaped my life, and how even one prong of it might speak to you and might entice you to come into this world of environmental wellness. And then we'll talk about how to get started in a few kind of really simple steps, and then we'll conclude. So one of the things that I want to share is that throughout the presentation, you'll see call out boxes. All the pictures in it are either like ones that I took or are affiliated with one of the organizations that I'm part of. So these are real life pictures. I tried to make this a presentation that connects with the everyday person, because I am not someone that has a ag background in terms of a degree in agriculture. I didn't grow up on a farm. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a mental health professional. So I'm truly an everyday person who's coming into this. So the pictures are ones that you could possibly take as well. The links are ones that you can find just online, and you can watch in the YouTube videos and browse on your own. So really, this is meant to be a relatable experience. Starting with the relatability, and when I shared that I came into realizing in adulthood that I needed to unpack some stuff and I needed to find a tool to do so. In that unpacking, I realized, oh, what I'm dealing with in terms of anxiety and lack of boundaries and being too stretched, too thin. All of that started in my formative years as a youth. And so the hyper productivity comes in, particularly through school, where I was an academic all-star. I had to be the president of everything, all the clubs. Okay. I held a job since I was 15. I always fast-tracked my studies. I started college when I was in high school. I started my master's program while I was still in undergrad. I went straight to law school after undergrad. And then during law school, I became a mother. I had my son the day after I graduated law school. And then I chose a profession, philanthropy and fundraising, that is actually pretty high pressure. There are metrics that are the only things that really deem you to be successful. If you're not bringing in the money, you're no good to anybody as far as the profession is concerned. So by the time I was 25, I was wearing all of these hats and had all of these expectations. And then, so when I'm in the midst of figuring out single motherhood and work, another hat was placed upon me because of life. My father was older, he was in his 80s. Around 2013, 2014, I had to make some changes. I was in St. Louis, I had to move to Ohio in order to help care for him because he was, like I said, he was in his 80s, so dementia was setting in. So I found myself in a sandwich generation life, which I know many people, boomers and millennials, in particular, are finding themselves caring for little kids, either their own kids or grandkids, and caring for parents, right? And so, in this whole time, with all of these hats, all of these bricks layered on top of me, I found myself in a slow descent into chronic stress and depression. And one of the early wake up signs of the impact really brought to light to me how chronic stress, whether you acknowledge it or not, is going to affect your physical health. I had a day where my arm was growing numb all the way down to the middle of my hand. And I went to the urgent care. I almost didn't go because as a mother, I was debating between going to urgent care or picking up my son on time, and I was concerned. I went to urgent care because I had never experienced anything like this. And the nurse practitioner didn't even really need me to be in the examining room for long when she looked at my arm and said, "Oh, you don't have a spider bite," which is what I thought it was. She said, "You have shingles." And in a person your age, the one question I have to ask is, "Are you stressed?" And that question alone blew me back. A, because no one ever asked me because no one ever cared. And, you know, B, because I didn't think that stress could impact me in that way. So while that was an early wake up sign, it was still a couple more years before I really had my wake up call when the depression really kicked in. Remember, I was someone who always had goals, always had hyper planned everything out. And when I found myself at a point in my life where I could barely get out of bed, I could barely just make it through the day, that was my accomplishment. I couldn't think 2, 3, 4 years out. I had no goals. That scared me. Probably even more than the shingles diagnosis, even though that really hurt. Shingles is not fun. And so I decided, oh no, I got to do something. I got to get well because I have this child. I have my mother who, because by that time my father had passed away, I had to be on for people. And in order to be on for people, I had to be on for myself. So I started the journey. And luckily, I worked at Ohio State. I still work at Ohio State, and we have a very robust access to health and wellness resources. I was able to connect with a counselor through my employee assistance program. So I always highly recommend that as a starting point. If you find yourself in a position, again, I'm not a mental health professional, but it's pretty, anyone could say seek help, right? And so that was the start to my journey. But like I said, I'm someone who I need frameworks, I need goals, I need something to help me unpack. And I remembered when I first started at Ohio State, there was I don't remember exactly how I came to learn it, but it was the 9 dimensions of wellness had made its way into faculty and staff resources. I entered Ohio State working in student affairs at first for 2 years, so I knew it was already in the student affairs model for support. Encouraging students to think about their comprehensive wellness, but it had made its way to being a resource for staff. And I really appreciated Dean Melnick's thought around breaking down wellness into bite-sized chunks that you can really delve into and almost use it as a checklist to explore where you stand. So this is just a pictorial kind of graph of the 9 dimensions of wellness. So we'll go through each of them as I explain how gardening became a tool for me to delve deeper into all 9. But I came to getting into gardening really by realizing once I was able to say, okay, well, I go to church pretty regularly and I have, a group of friends so I can check off social wellness, and I'm in counseling now so I can check off emotional wellness. And once I got down to all the categories that I wasn't really strong in, physical wellness and environmental wellness, were strong. And I wasn't really reading at the time, so intellectual wellness had jumped out, but environmental wellness, I had no basis. And so by this time, it's the beginning of 2020, and the pandemic happened, and Franklin County Extension agent, agricultural natural resources agent, educator, Tim McDermott was hosting how to get started in gardening virtual classes, hosting container gardening classes. And I just decided to sign up for one. And that's all she wrote. Well, really, I had started taking walks in Franklin Park and really just trying to passively get connected with environmental wellness. But it was me joining that Franklin County Extension course. So remember that um, phrase, because it's going to come up later again as a resource, was my entree into container gardening and then full blown gardening. So let me share with you how gardening has supported my each dimension of wellness as I came into it. So spiritual wellness um, implores people to explore the depth of human purpose, to ponder human connectedness, to seek answers to questions like, why am I here, or why are we here? And so this is a time for you to reflect on your beliefs and your connection to others. And this was really important to me because remember, I came out of a time where I didn't feel connected to anything. So when I walk into the garden, this is one of the when I shifted from container gardening only to container gardening and community gardening. This is a picture of some green bean seeds that I had planted that have turned into a seedling. And when I'm in the garden, I see something that went from an itty bitty seed that I planted turning into a seedling that then turns into a plant that produces a very particular fruit. It blows my mind because you can put a bunch of different bean seeds in your hand and maybe not be able to tell them apart, but they know what they're supposed to do individually when they're planted. To me, it's just an amazing experience. It reminds me that we all have a purpose. So even on the days when you're feeling like no one cares and no one's listening, and you have a purpose. And so that really is an essential reminder. Everything, ants, worms, birds, butterflies, everyone has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. So that is something that I leverage deeply. Emotional wellness, the goal is to be able to identify, express, and manage your full range of feelings. When you feel overwhelmed, you are encouraged to seek help. Cognitive behavioral skills and mindfulness techniques help keep the blues away and the anxiety at bay. And this is not just me saying it. Again, I'm not a medical expert. This is something that the medical experts have said, to the extent now, I had shingles, and so I can only imagine someone who is going through a treatment for cancer, how the heavy weight of realizing their physical connection to the environment, and just however they've come into this awareness of their cancer, how that can bring on stress in and of itself. You got appointments, you got treatments, you got family, you got maybe work still, right? So the James Cancer Center has created a garden. I know there's a Ross Heart Health Garden as well. They've created these spaces on purpose so that the patient who has either gone through treatment or is going through treatment can come out to the garden with their families and have it as an escape. So you can click here to learn more about why they have the Garden of Hope, but it helps as a space to have conversation with other people who are going through similar situations, so that social wellness comes in as well. But it also, just being outside connects you to all kinds of ways to release, and having your hand in soil, and it distracts you from all that's going on in your life. So emotional wellness is aided there as well. Physical wellness. I have these pictures on purpose because mindful movement is inherent in physical wellness, and it's inherent in gardening. As you can see, I'm bent over. So if you, there's a documentary on Netflix that is from the Blue Zones group that talks about they really emphasize getting your nutrition and your vitamins and stuff from the food that you eat, as opposed to supplements. And they also talk about doing natural activities like gardening and like walking and hiking and things like that, that naturally keep you mobile and stretching. So as you can see, I'm bent over in a position that is going, when I pull up, I'm going to be using my core work. I'm kind of in a position where my legs are stretched out. You can see a picture in the middle there is a friend of mine, mother. She's actually on here. Adrian Williams' mother, you can see she's using her shoulders to rake. So if you watch that documentary and just follow the blue zones, you'll get some more suggestions as to how you can leverage environmental wellness for your overall physical wellness. I also grow herbs on purpose because they are just great resources for nutrients. And I use, instead of taking melatonin to help, go to sleep after busy days, I drink lavender tea, and this is lavender that I grew and that I dry, and I have like a little strainer. So that's going to come up again here shortly. But that is a sleepy time aid. And I tell you, 30 minutes after you drink that, you're ready to go to bed. Okay. And then over here in the kitchen, this is at the Franklin County Extension Building on Waterman. We are doing a workshop on, I was just a participant that day, on how to make salves and using essential oils like lavender oil and whatnot. So it was a really fun workshop that Solomon Garner and Nicole Jackson led for us. Career wellness, I'm going to emphasize the aspects of career wellness that are beyond what you do day to day in your job, right? This is where you work is just as important as what you do at work, right? So what you're doing in your profession is important, but where you're doing that work is important too. And so, when you evaluate how much time you're spending at work, do you actually enjoy being there? Are you getting other things out of it beside a paycheck? And I can say that I am at Ohio State. I love working at a place that is community engaged. You see the James Mobile Education Kitchen that comes out to a garden that I help manage. They deliver on-site tasting plates. They provide nutrition education and help people learn about menus that they can prepare from garden fresh meals. I work at a place that group of people there that's to represent volunteerism. If you are at a place that has volunteer days or not yet, maybe you can suggest one. Earth Month is coming up. Maybe you can suggest going out as a team to work in a garden. It's a team building activity. I highly suggest it. My office does team building volunteer experiences, so that's one way to do it. And also, you can be like the tomato fairy or whatever you grow, you can bring into the office. It's great for starting conversations. It's great for obviously sharing access to healthy produce. So I highly recommend that. Financial wellness is about bolstering your sense of security, and you can do so through saving. You can save by actually putting money away in the bank, but you can also save by cutting down on your expenses. And gardening has been one way that I've been able to cut down on my food expenses, particularly at a time when food prices are just going up and up and up. Being able to basically go shopping in my garden is just fantastic, right? And I get to grow things that aren't even sold in stores, right? Different varieties of tomatoes, different varieties of herbs. As you can see, I love growing purple things and pink things. So you get to grow what you want and spend less. Social wellness is essential in my gardening journey. This is all about relationships. This is building community, building connections with friends, family, colleagues, neighbors. These are some pictures of some folks that I have either already known for years and gotten closer to, or that I have gotten to know entirely new here through gardening. So it just feels good to be connected to people who have a similarly situated spirit, similarly situated perspective on the world. So I highly suggest gardening for social wellness. Intellectual wellness. This is about lifelong learning. This is about critical thinking. This is about exposing yourself to various worldviews, which we need more of in this time, and keeping your brain agile. And intellectual wellness helps stave off cognitive decline. So the Growing and Growth Collective, I have yet to mention it, but I will mention it here. because I got so deep into gardening, and then the social wellness component brought me even closer to other people who care so much about it. We started a grassroots initiative that is supported by Partners Achieving Community Transformation. Um, and they're our fiscal agent, but we are just a grassroots organization of individuals who've come together to help maintain community gardens. But we do so from the standpoint of a very intentional perspective around healing the connection of Black, Indigenous, and people of color between this group, BIPOC, and the land, because it's very tenuous. I mentioned recently, earlier this week, I think, or at the end of last week, how I remember the first time I saw cotton and how I had a reaction that I didn't expect. I felt stressed. I felt anxious. That I've never experienced cotton before, but generations worth of trauma in connection to cotton that came up in me, right? And so we're talking about the ways that we have to heal ourselves in order to reconnect with the earth. And so the Growing and Growth Collective invites in anyone who is interested in connecting in with environmental wellness, but particularly folks who have to undo some stuff in order to reconnect with the land in a positive and healthy way. And so the Growing and Growth Collective is a space where you can do that. And you can start off virtually. You can go to our Linktree page and scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's like over 35 resources, including the at least two of the books, the Farming While Black book and Freedom Farmers book, are on there as resources. We have podcasts, we have YouTube videos, we have extension pages, all kind of information on there for you to connect with gardening through intellectual wellness. Creative wellness, it's about arts and cultural experiences, trying new things, trying new forms of art. Growing and Growth Collective, again, is an essential place for you to get started in that because me and some of the co-founders have arts backgrounds. We infuse art into that because especially we're inviting in people who may not previously had a connection to growing. One of the ways that anybody can learn a new topic is through art. So the medium of education is art, but the topic is gardening, or the topic is environmental wellness or sustainability, what have you. So this is a picture of a journaling. I think she called them junk journals. They're just recycled old cards and like leaves that you save and all of that that you can use to create art with. And lastly is environmental wellness overall. So I've already spoken about all of the individual facets of gardening for wellness, but I encourage you to leverage the Growing and Growth Collective. And again, I encourage you to leverage Franklin County Extension. I also invite you to, and if you're not in, I would assume that most people here are in Franklin County, but if you're not in Franklin County, every land grant institution in the United States, so every flagship school like Ohio State, for instance, has an extension office, either in your region or in your county. So you can find something that's particular to your area if you're not in Franklin County. And there's an extension office in all 88 counties in Ohio, for instance. I also invite you to follow along on Mahogany Manifesto. This is something else that I've created out of my lessons learned. I love sharing. I love chronicling my experiences and sharing them with people. So you can go on to Mahogany Manifesto's Instagram page or also follow this Linktree page. You're going to get all these links. I'm going to drop them in the chat. And this is where I continue that kind of exposure to gardening. As just an everyday person who's trying to stay well and stay healthy. So I talk about gardening among other tools like gratitude, reflection for that. And I've created a planner that can be leveraged for tracking your progress in your own wellness goals, whatever those are. You can also meet up with me in the garden or meet up with me at some farmers market. I have gone from just growing for personal well-being to I'm so excited about it. I'm going to be a seller at farmers markets, particularly those on the Near East Side of Columbus, at the Bronzeville Growers Market, and at the Broad Street Presbyterian Church Sunday markets that we'll have. So in order to find out when and where not only I'll be selling, but other individuals that are like-minded will be selling, you can follow us along on there. All right, so this is how you can get started. And I can do this in about 10 minutes. I want to emphasize again your extension office. That, remember, that is how I got started. I highly suggest it. And there's links in here to the Franklin County Extension. So, and if I don't have it in there, I will definitely drop it in the chat at the end. But start there. Start there. And the reason why I say start with your extension office is because one of the most important aspects of growing and being successful in growing is knowing what to grow for your region. If you're in Columbus, you're in zone 6B. That is a designated zone by the USDA. And that chronicles what you can grow in your region, okay? What you can expect in terms of weather patterns in your region. Your extension office is going to be an expert in being able to support you in knowing what can grow in your region, okay? So I highly suggest that. That's my little hand with my little basket of goodies there. So I highly suggest that. But something that you're definitely going to have to do is think about where you can grow. And it's a lot of places, actually. Oftentimes people think about backyard growing, but you can also grow in your front yard. You can grow in your backyard. This right here is my current house. I'm going to move, but you can grow in your front yard. I took the grass out of my front yard to make it easier for me to grow. Or you can just grow in your backyard, in your soil, if your soil is healthy, and your extension office can help you with testing your soil. You can grow in raised beds in your backyard. You can grow in containers, what have you. You could grow indoor. There are elaborate systems that set up for indoor growing with grow lights. You can grow houseplants for sure, but we're talking about growing fruit and leafy greens and things that are edible plants, okay? Or you can have a pretty moderate setup to get your plants started. You can do a grow light system that's, you know, pretty low in terms of cost to start up. So there are some indoor growing options. You can grow in community gardens. So that's where Growing and Growth Collective comes in as an option. All of our gardens are on the Near East Side, but you can reach out to us for suggestions as to where to connect for other gardens on different parts of town. And here's a page where you can learn about ways to get involved in GGC's garden. So we have really starting in April. So go to our Linktree page, and starting in April, you can come out to our gardens and you can help with getting the gardens prepared for growing. Right now, we're in the phase of we got to pull out all the weeds, we got to lay new soil, we got to do all the work in order to enjoy the fruits of our, to plant and then enjoy the fruits of our labor. So again, get that physical wellness in, that social wellness, learn something new through Growing and Growth Collective. You don't have to grow in a community garden. You can, if you're in an apartment and you just want to kind of start slow, you can grow on a veranda, you can grow on a rooftop, you can grow in the corner of a balcony. There's all kinds of ways that you can grow. So once you've thought about your zone, and once you've thought about your location, so your geographical location and your like physical location, either in your residence or in a community garden, you also want to think about your access to sunlight. So you might be able to grow at home, but if your house or your apartment or whatever is situated in a way that light is a little funny, again, that's where your extension office comes in handy. But also in this early phases of growing, if this is new for you, YouTube and Google are going to be your friends, okay? So if you walk out and it feels a little, if it's high, if you know during the summer, you can walk to a place where you want to grow and it's a little cool and the sun isn't fully there, get some sun, then you might be in a partial shade environment or partial sun environment. So you need to not only select your location, but also select plants that will thrive in that location. That's where you need to go to your resources online and to your extension agent. So you need to think about full sun plants, plants that can thrive and tolerate partial sun or partial shade. And then there are very few, but there are some that can thrive in shade. You still need some sun though, okay? So we've talked about location, sunlight. Now, once you've decided what you can grow, you need to think about what you can grow it in. So containers are great because they're an easy, low-cost way to get started, but you need to make sure your plant size is appropriate for the container size, okay? Grow bags are great. Well, let me go back to container size. Think about herbs, leafy greens like lettuce. You can grow in smaller containers, like 8-inch containers or 8-inch grow bags. Grow bags are felt, kind of like a felt bag that allows for breathability, because that's one of the issues that you have to monitor with containers. You have to have drainage. So if you're going to use a plastic container, you gotta nail some holes in the bottom. But if you're going to use a grow bag, then the water can seep out. And in either case, whether you use a plastic container or a terracotta pot, which also allows for seepage, or a grow bag, you can move these things around. So that's one of the benefits of containers, because when you're trying things out and you're learning about the sun levels of your house, if you start something in the back and it's not thriving, you can move it to the front or vice versa. Okay. So pick the container based on growing. So smaller containers for herbs, leafy greens, larger items like broccoli, cabbage, tomato plants, you need a larger container. But a 5-gallon container bucket can pretty much sustain basically anything you're interested in growing for the most part. Okay. Soil. As someone who can speak from experience of just getting started with anything, go to Lowe's or go to your garden center and ask for suggestions, or just go with old trusty Miracle Grow. Get you a bag of soil. If they're selling it, chances are it's pretty decent. Okay. So just get a regular bag of soil. And then once you, at the end of the season, that's when you can worry about thinking about what you need to do to keep that soil healthy. But just getting started, just get soil from the store. Watering strategies. The one thing you need to make sure is that you do water. You can, and that's another thing to think about. If you know, in addition to thinking about plants that will thrive in the light level that you have, you might want to think about plants that you can care for that also you have the time to care for. So some plants are more drought tolerant than others. It's still ideal to make sure you're watering your plants on a regular basis, every day in the morning, so that the soil has time to dry through the rest of the day. Or in the high season, so in July, August, when it's really hot, you might have to water in the morning and in the late afternoon. Okay. But if you don't have time for that, you might want to think about things like beans are pretty hardy. They can withstand a little bit of neglect. Collards, so look again, Google and YouTube are your friends. Drought tolerant veggies or low effort vegetables to grow. Strawberries are really low effort, squash is pretty low effort. So think about what time you can allot to it, and how that will affect your ability to water on a regular basis. Fertilization. So even though I said worry about like the main crux of your soil health at the end of the season, you will need to make sure that your plants are thriving, because especially in containers, it does not have access to what in-ground plants have, like worms getting in there, and aeration, and bringing in other nutrients and all of that as they move through the soil and all of that. But you can do a weekly fertilization schedule. Again, keep it simple. Use Miracle Grow products. That's what I use, plant food. It's water soluble. It comes with a little scoop. If you do the box, you just follow the instructions. You put it in there. And I was a very nervous gardener. I always worried like how that was another practice of mine. Remember, I said I had to come through hyperproductivity. I had to come through perfectionism. I had to release all that. Gardening will force you to release some of that. Okay. So if you just follow the instructions and do it, there's no need to worry, because it's probably going to thrive. And if it doesn't, then just it's a lesson learned and you try again next year or you try again in a different part of the season. So it's really a great practice, right? So plant food is a high recommendation there. So key takeaways are to just get started and to leverage your resources. Growing and Growth Collective is one of those resources. The Franklin County Extension Office is one of those resources. Also stay well in terms of connecting with, other communities that are wellness oriented. Feed yourself with all kinds of wellness. Like that helps, like making sure that if you're going to be on Instagram, like balance it out, like get off the shade room and add in some other accounts there or whatever, or get off social media altogether and go to the garden. So that is my presentation.
Thank you, Gerald. That was fantastic. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll take those. I do invite everybody back next month on Tuesday, May 7th at 5 o'clock. We'll be joined by one of our exercises medicine specialists, Hannah Prenger. She'll be talking about reducing fall risk through exercises like Pilates, Tai Chi, and yoga. So if you're interested in learning some strategies and skills through those types of exercise to help reduce fall risk, next month's webinar will be helpful to you. So let me turn off